Seika Academy was a famous school for talented students. It trained future stars in acting, sports, and advanced studies. Many of the most successful people in the world had graduated from there. One of them was Subaru Ayase, a legendary actress and top student. Now her son, Yu Ayase, had just transferred into the school, but Yu was not like his mother. While she had been admired by everyone, Yu was struggling to keep up. His mentor at the school treated him harshly, constantly yelling at him. It wasn't because of anything Yu did, it was just because of who he was. Everyone expected him to be like Subaru, while he wasn't. He failed many of his classes and was weak in martial arts. Even so, some students still believed that he might have hidden talent. After all, some geniuses take time to show their abilities. Subaru Ayase, Yu's mother, had been a perfect student. She was beautiful, smart, and brave, and she could do all her own performance stunts. She had graduated at the top of her class and was admired worldwide. Because of her reputation, people watched Yu closely and judged everything he did. One day, Yu's mentor told him that the top 3 students, called the Three Royals, were curious about him. These 3 were the best in their fields. Wanting to prove himself, Yu gathered all his strength and threw a punch. But it was weak and barely touched his opponent. His mentor lost patience and slammed Yu to the ground. Everyone watching began to whisper that Yu, the son of Subaru Ayase, was a complete failure. Yu had heard this kind of talk many times since he turned 17. Lying on the floor, he looked up at his mentor and said something sharp about how average people often cared too much about talent. The mentor was briefly surprised. "You look just like Subaru," and even sounded like her for a moment. Still, the scolding continued. Yu said nothing more. He already knew how talented his mother was. He had seen it himself. Without replying, he walked away. Most people thought he had simply accepted defeat, but suddenly, the mentor was kicked from behind. It was Miko, the top martial artist in the school. Her 2 sisters, Kazuki and Miwa, stood beside her. Kazuki was a famous actress and Miwa was a sports genius. The 3 of them were the highest-ranked students in their programs. Yu looked up in surprise. The sisters were disappointed when they learned that he had failed his tests and had no special skills. They had hoped he would join their departments, but Yu had already moved into the general education course, a forgotten division of the school for students without any special talents. As he turned to leave, Nico reminded him of the rule that the loser had to clean the dojo, so he stayed behind to clean. The sisters walked away, tossing insults his way, but Yu didn't respond. He simply picked up a bucket and started working. The next day, the dojo was spotless. Students were shocked by how clean it was. No one knew Yu had cleaned everything by himself late into the night. As Yu walked home, he thought about his past. When he was a kid, he had wanted to be praised like his mother. He would act out movie scenes in front of the television. But every time he saw his mother perform, he realized he could never shine like her. He tried many different things, acting, sports, and studying, but never found something he was good at. Eventually, he gave up and grew distant from her, even though she was the only family he had. Later, his mother became sick and had to stay in the hospital. She often watched an old family drama series she had acted in. In it, she played a kind and simple mother. It wasn't one of her popular roles, but she liked it. So did Yu. One day, while sitting beside her bed, he told her that his favorite part of the show was the ending, where the whole family would gather around the table for dinner. That moment led to one of the only deep conversations they had in years. From that talk, you realized something important. His mother didn't care if he became famous. She only wanted him to have a happy family. That was her final wish. After she passed away, Yu packed his things and went to live at the home of Mr. Mikadano, a man who had been a friend and supporter of his mother. When Yu arrived, he stood in front of a large mansion with the Mikadano name at the gate. The house was huge, but he remembered that Mr. Mikadano had invited him, so he went inside. As soon as he entered, a foot hit him in the face. He fell to the floor. Miko, wearing only a towel, had mistaken him for a trespasser. She tried to kick him again but slipped. Yu, trying to help, threw a towel over her head to dry her off. She pulled away angrily. Just then, Kazuki and Miwa appeared. Miwa recognized Yu right away and demanded to know why he was there. Before he could answer, his phone rang. It was Mr. Mikadano, calling to check if Yu had arrived safely. His sisters stood in shock when Yu spoke casually to their father. Mr. Mikadano explained that he had promised Subaru to look after Yu. He wanted to support the boy and keep his mother's memory alive. What he forgot to mention was that Yu would be living with his daughters. Now Yu realized he was going to live in the same house as the 3 royals. The girls were not happy. Nico accepted it only because it was their father's decision. Kazuki couldn't believe their father had invited someone she considered a failure. Miwa refused to help take care of him at all. But Yu didn't give up. He introduced himself politely and said he would do his best to get along. While unpacking, he accidentally stepped on a woman's undergarment. Kazuki grabbed it from him, blushing. Then Yu noticed how messy the house was. The kitchen was full of dirty dishes. the sink had broken glass. The laundry was piled up. Kazuki had tried to wash the dishes but failed. Maiwa had forgotten how to do laundry and wrote instructions on her hands. Miko blamed Yu for exposing their mess, though she was in charge of cleaning. You didn't say anything. You just started cleaning again. In no time, the mansion looked clean and organized. That's when Neko realized Yu had also cleaned the dojo. Yu smiled and said he didn't mind cleaning. It was something he could actually do well. The next morning, Yu woke up early, hoping for a calm day since there was no school. But the house was already full of noise. Neko was training loudly in her dojo. Meiwa was playing a video game and arguing with someone online. Kazuki was in the kitchen mixing a strange green drink. Yu sat at the table, hoping they might eat together. But Kazuki rushed out. Miwa counted her snacks as her breakfast. When Yu warned her about it, she ignored him. While he made breakfast for himself, he thought about how his mother had acted the same way. She had always been busy, skipping meals and focusing only on her work. Now he understood the sisters more. Kazuki needed to stay in shape to act. Miwa kept her mind sharp with snacks. Neko had to follow strict routines for her training. Talented people often got so focused on themselves that they didn't notice others. Yu remembered how even his mother made him feel like he didn't belong in her world. Before the girls left the house, Yu stopped them and told them they had forgotten something. They checked their bags in a panic, but found nothing missing. Then he calmly reminded them that they forgot to wish each other a nice day. The sisters didn't know how to respond. They brushed off his words as strange, but later, each of them remembered what he had said. Back in the kitchen, Yu was washing dishes when Mr. Mikadano called again. He explained that he would be away most of the time because of work. Yu would be spending his days alone with the sisters. Mr. Mikadano asked Yu for a favor to be there for the girls when they faced problems. He believed that Yu, even without special talent, could help them open up. Yu looked around the now-clean house. He didn't know how he could help 3 gifted girls as someone so average. But he remembered his mother's wish. He had promised to try. He wasn't talented. He wasn't special. But he would do his best. He would try to build the happy family his mother had always dreamed of. Even though it was a difficult task, Yu tried not to let Mr. Mikadano's requests overwhelm him. He couldn't help but wonder how someone like him, so ordinary, could possibly help 3 incredibly talented girls. Why would they even need help from someone like him? But Mr. Mikadano had explained everything. Kazuki had an important audition coming up, Miko was training for a national martial arts competition, and Miwa had a big Shaja title match on the horizon. He wanted Yu to support them through it all. After the call ended, Yu was outside hanging the laundry. The thoughts still lingered in his mind. He wasn't strong, smart, or special. He'd always struggled to find something he was good at. He understood failure very well. As the son of a famous actress with no talent of his own, he felt the sting of other people's disappointment more times than he could count. If that pain was already hard for someone average like him, he couldn't imagine how much worse it must be for someone everyone expected to succeed. Determined to help in any way he could, Yu hopped on his bicycle and headed to the market. He figured the first step to getting closer to them was to share a meal together. Later that evening, Miko came home and was surprised to see Yu in the kitchen. She had almost forgotten that he lived there now. Yu was in the middle of cooking and invited her to try the food. Thinking he was just trying to win her over, Miko turned him down and said she had already bought dinner for herself. She went to shower and dry her hair, but when she came back, she was surprised to see Yu still cooking, surrounded by a pile of cookbooks. He looked so focused. It made her realize he was really serious about making this meal. Miwa came home around the same time. Yu cheerfully told her he was making a family dinner. Miko still thought it was silly and that Yu was just trying to get attention, but watching him reminded her of something from the past. Even when top chefs made their meals, the sisters often refused to eat them. Miko especially was strict about what she ate, always sticking to carefully planned meals for training. That night, Miko sat alone in her room, eating her pre-packed dinner, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Yu's cooking. Curious, she peeked downstairs. Seeing no one around, she quietly walked to the table. When she saw the meal he made, she was shocked. It was perfectly balanced for an athlete's diet. Just then, Yu appeared behind her and explained all the nutrients in the meal. He had even talked to a dietitian to make sure it fit her needs. Miko was amazed, but she tried not to show it. Still, she sat down to give it a try. When she didn't complain, Yu's face lit up with joy. Maiwa peeked down from the stairs. She saw her sister eating and couldn't help but feel curious too. She quietly came down and Yu offered her a plate designed specifically for her brain health. He happily listed out the ingredients and their benefits. Miko was surprised again. Yu had made a different meal for each of them. Maiwa tried to act like she didn't care, but Yu was persistent. Finally, the 2 sisters sat at the table, teasing each other like normal siblings. Seeing this made Yu smile, but the happy moment didn't last long. Kazuki walked in. Yu proudly presented a meal made just for her, full of nutrients to keep her looking her best for her career. But Kazuki didn't even look at the food. She turned and walked straight to her room. Deep down, seeing her sisters eating together like a real family warmed her heart, but she didn't feel like she belonged at that table. Not with food made by someone she saw as a nobody. Yu was frozen in place. His mood dropped instantly. Even Nico and Meiwa were annoyed by Kazuki's reaction. Nico offered to eat her sister's meal, but Yu stopped her, warning it could mess up her diet. He promised to take care of all their meals from now on. 3 days passed, and Yu still made no progress with Kazuki. In class, he couldn't stop thinking about her. He wondered how he could understand her better. Then an idea struck him. He stood up and left class, determined to do something. He found Kazuki surrounded by students, all admiring her beauty. Without thinking, he called out to her. Everyone stared. Kazuki warned him not to come closer. He tried to joke about all the effort he put into making her dinner, but Kazuki snapped at him, embarrassed by all the attention. Students began whispering that the two of them might be dating. Yu panicked and ran off. He decided to ask Miko for help. At the dojo, she was busy with training, and her annoyed face made it clear she didn't want to be bothered. 2 teammates stepped forward, thinking Yu was causing trouble. Realizing he was in danger, Yu quickly ran away. Next, he turned to Miwa. He found her in class, casually playing on her phone. The other students were talking about how hard the homework was, and Miwa casually gave the right answer, surprising everyone. Yu was surprised to see her sitting alone. He asked her to eat lunch with him, but Miwa refused and walked off. Yu followed her, no matter where she went. They ended up running around the school in circles. Strangely, they ran at the same pace, proving Miwa wasn't much of an athlete either. Eventually, they both collapsed in exhaustion. Miwa admitted sports weren't her strength, but said she was still better than Yu. They joked about being different from everyone else. Yu called himself a royal too, of being short, weak, and stupid. Miwa laughed and said his good looks were misleading. Later, while eating sandwiches together, Yu opened up about his struggles with Kazuki. Miwa remembered something from childhood. Kazuki once asked their mother to cook just for her. She looked so happy. Maybe that memory held the key. When Kazuki came home, Yu announced what he planned to cook next. Kazuki's eyes widened and she suddenly collapsed. Her sisters rushed over. She said she was just tired, but her forehead was burning with fever. Yu brought porridge to her room, but Kazuki shut him out. Her sisters explained that she often got sick and that rehearsals had been tough lately. For the next few days, Yu continued delivering meals to her room, but she returned them untouched with a note saying, "Take that away." Finally, Yu reached his breaking point, but as he turned to leave, Kazuki collapsed again, falling right into his arms. Still, he didn't give up. He offered to bring her supplements and even help her rehearse so she wouldn't fall behind. He remembered he had acted once too, though only because his mother pulled strings to get him in. He tried reading the script and acting alongside her, but his performance was awful and Kazuki kicked him out. The next day, he tried again. Still bad. He kept trying, reading the script over and over, but nothing worked. That night, Kazuki laid in her bed, thinking that someone like Yu, who was amateur, could never really understand what it meant to be a professional. She had always been admired and given the main roles. That meant there was always pressure on her to do well. Failing was never an option. Wanting to improve herself, Kazuki finally got up. When she walked into the living room, she saw Yu watching a movie on TV. It was the same story she was practicing for. She realized that even after his long days at school and doing chores, Yu was spending his nights studying the movie just to help her practice. The next morning, Yu's acting was still awkward and stiff. But this time, Kazuki didn't tell him to stop. He had clearly worked hard. Then something surprising happened. After Kazuki said her line, Yu replied with so much feeling that the scene actually turned out well. He was so moved that he started crying. After failing many times, he had finally done something right. Kazuki thought it was silly to cry over one good scene, so she scolded him a little to calm him down. Still, deep inside, she quietly wished she could return to acting soon. Later, Kazuki spoke up. She said she was ready to try Yu's cooking, but only if he agreed to one condition. She was shy about it at first and pulled a blanket over her face. Then, in a soft voice, she listed the foods she didn't like. After all this time, she still didn't want anyone to know how picky she was about food.